Hi and welcome to today's Daily Bible Reflection video. Today we're going to be looking at the theme Love Them for Who They Are, and we're going to be doing that by looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 8. Love never fails. Okay, so I'll read a little bit of the verses around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the verses of this chapter which are specifically referring to love. So what I'll do is I will read verse 4 to the very start, the first sentence of verse 8, and I'll then jump at the end to verse 13. I'll read this one from the NIV, even though our reading essentially was from the New King James. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It is not rude, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Love is an amazing thing, and we always have to remember when we talk about love, the problem with the English language is that so often we end up with one word that covers a multitude of things. In biblical terms, we've got three different types of love. One is the kind of romantic type of love, one is a familial type of love, and one is a kind of a love that we have towards our friends. I think I'm getting that right. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And so what we can see from this is that love covers all bases. We're not just talking about when you're in love with someone. We're not just talking about loving your family. We're talking about all manner of love. And when we see the theme for today of love them for who they are, there is a massive challenge to the society we're in today. We're called to love people for who they are. Now, it doesn't mean that we then say, okay, and everything you're doing is fine. We're not called to accept people for the things that they do, but we're called to love them for who they are. Now, there's two aspects to this. The first is that we love people for who they are, even if that may mean that there are certain kind of issues that we might have with some of the way that they are expressing who they are. But we also have to remember that we love them for who they are and who they are in God. Who they are in God, in terms of the fact that God created them. And so when we talk about loving others, it should be first we should think about in this context. The next thing is we should remember that God is love. And so when we talk about love never fails, God never fails. God is love, therefore love never fails. So it's a nice little kind of logical progression there of understanding why love never fails. But if God is love and we are called to love, we are called to be like God. So if we're called to be like God, we're therefore called to love. We're called to never let our love, well, we're called to attempt to never let our love fail. We're human, we're going to fail. But we're called to try and be like that. Now, when we come to the idea of loving people for who they are, I've already said this is a massive challenge to the way society is at the moment. Because if you have a look around us, so many areas of life are seeking to change you. You can change your gender, you can change your the things that you have. You can change your appearance. You can. There was a crazy cat person, the guy who had it, or woman who had teeth sharpened and bits of the face edited to look like more and more cat-like. You can have all sorts of plastic surgeries done to you. You can have all manner of things done to change your appearance. You can change your diet. You can have hundreds of different diets that you could go on to try and change your health. There are a million and one different activities you could do to change your interests. Change is, it would appear, the operative word for society right now. And in some regards, change is good. If change wasn't good, I wouldn't be currently working in Edinburgh. If change wasn't good, my parents would never have married and I would not have been born, because one of them was born in Barry, and the other was born in Liverpool. If change didn't happen, they wouldn't have met. I wouldn't exist right now. If change wasn't good, then all our natural impulses would be acted upon, and that would be the way that we lived our lives. But we're called to change. We are called to change. But we're called to change because of a relationship with God. We're not called to change to feed our own desires, our own inclinations, and the whims of society around us. We're called to change ourselves to become more like God. If we're called to be more like God, that means we need to ignore what the world is telling us, what society is telling us. Potentially ignoring what our friends are telling us, what our teachers are telling us, what our bosses at work are telling us. Ignore what the news is telling you. Regardless of whether you're seeking to live a life according to God's will and desire, you should ignore celebrities and what they say anyway, because that's not helpful at all. But definitely in this context of if we're focusing on God, then we ignore what celebrities tell us is a good thing. We ignore all except God and those who speak clearly from where God is coming from. So when it comes to change to become more like God, but don't change to become more like the world around you. Recognize others as well. We're called to love others. We're called to love others for who they are. So we love them, even if we don't agree with them. We can seek to try and encourage them, teach them about Jesus, and hope that he shows them that there is a different way to live. But we're called to love them regardless. And we're called for that love to carry on. Love never fails. That is the calling that we have from God. Carry on loving, just as God does. It's a challenge to carry on loving in a world where so many times things will go badly for us, where people will do stuff against us. It's a challenge as well to love people for who they are, not for who we might want them to be, not for what their actions might show them to be. Love people for who they are, particularly who they are in God. God created all people. That means they all have value and worth. love them for that value, love them for that worth. If we love them, then we will be able to see beyond the things that people may do. If we love them, we'll be able to be able to see them as God sees them, and see that value and treat them the way that God would call us to. I'll leave it there, and I will see you tomorrow in the next video.